There are certain films that define a specific genre, subgenre, or film movement. Why is that? Because they contain a specific aspect that will later be used or reproduced in another film of the same group. We could even say that there are films that are perfect examples of a particular genre. The greatest exponents are the ones that turn into the film classics we know today. For example, when we talk about the slasher genre, we can pass by Halloween, the 1978 film directed by John Carpenter. Michael Myers, the villain of the story, haunts teenagers wearing a mask and using a kitchen knife. And on top of that, a crucial characteristic is that Myers seems invincible. Despite being wounded, he finally recovers in an incredible way. This modus operandi is the specific thing that defines the genre, and it's something many will later evoke. When discussing the musical genre, a film that can be overlooked is the 1951 An American in Paris by Vincente Minnelli. This excellent movie contains all of the typical elements of the genre at its maximum splendor. A 5-star, charismatic cast led by Gene Kelly, a complex but touching love story accompanied by iconic songs, and finally, a series of choreographies with great spectacle, culminating in a musical number that summarizes the entire film towards the end. And the key movie of the science fiction genre is Metropolis, the 1927 film directed by Fritz Lang. At the very early stages of film production, this film defined the basis of sci-fi, futuristic cities, technological improvements, and robots. But the most interesting thing in which Metropolis was a pioneer was to present a philosophical dilemma between humankind and the advent of machines. Going to today's film, if we had to identify the genre of James Mangold's Logan, the easiest thing to say would be, this is a superhero movie. Wolverine and his metal claws, the supernatural creatures, and the mind-controlling powers. It's crystal clear. However, the movie fuses with another genre, the classic Western story. This is no surprise either. The arid scenarios of the US-Mexico border, the long rides through the route, and the different duels that occur throughout the film. Why did we start the video by talking about the most iconic films of each genre? Because Logan is not a superhero Western film that was born out of nowhere. It is a movie conscious of its main reference. The movie explicitly tells us about its main inspiration. Charles and Laura, the up-and-coming mutant and allegedly daughter of Logan, are watching a film in the hotel room that they rented. As we mentioned before, there are some films that are classics from each genre. They serve to understand the most important characteristics of a movie type. The film the mutants are watching is crucial to understand the Twilight Western subgenre. We are talking about the 1953 movie directed by George Stevens, Shane. Quoting this classic film is not fortuitous nor a stubborn decision from the director. To make things clear, there's an important difference between a reference and a quote. A reference is simply a mention, usually put in a random circumstance of a film, that exists only due to a personal wish of the director. Usually, the reference has a superficial or visual similarity to what we are seeing, but it has nothing to do with the significance of the plot. On the other hand, a quote is a conscious incorporation. The film, and particularly the director, takes the plot, a dialogue, a color, or a character from the quoted film with full understanding of what this element means, and such quote must have a link with the world in which the current film is developing. As we were saying, in 2017's Logan, there is a quote from 1953's Shane. The first thing we notice is that both films bear the given 5-letter name of their protagonists, because they will focus on the human side of the characters rather than the actions they will carry out. Both of them are strong men with great character and remarkable fighting skills. However, the two films explore the nature of being such a hero. Shane is an outlaw, a man from nowhere that can fight and defeat 4 men by himself. He saves the lives of the homesteaders without seeking any recognition or economic reward. Shane can easily be taken as a superhero. Logan is practically the same. Has superpowers, beats dozens of men at the same time, is theoretically invincible, and his objective is devoid of a monetary interest, despite initially being such. But again, the main thing here is that both films carry the first name of their protagonists. Logan and Shane. Logan could easily be called something like Wolverine and the Last Mission, or Wolverine 2, Legacy, or whatever. But Mangold decides to call the film only using Wolverine's name because he sees a bond between the mythical character from the comics and the classic character from George Stevens' film. In both cases, the protagonist is a character that is trying to understand himself. He's tired of fighting and using violence. In Shane, he even feels ashamed of using weapons. The two movies explore the human side of the superhero. Logan receives the news that he has a daughter who possesses his same abilities and is compelled to protect her. Meanwhile, young Joey sees in Shane a strong father figure, and a father-son bond is formed despite not being related. Even in both films, a romantic connection is suggested between the protagonists and another woman. In Logan, the superhero is asked if he sees any facial resemblance between the girl and someone from his past. In Shane, a platonic relationship is established between the cowboy and the mother of the house, Marion Starrett. Returning to the theme of the Twilight Western genre, Mangold not only chooses Shane as a quote due to the similarities of its protagonists. He also quotes this film because Shane is one of the first to acknowledge the sense of conclusion of the Western genre itself. In Shane, the cowboy is already old, tired, nearing the end of his days. He reflects deeply on himself. He even attempts to change his own nature, but in the course of his actions, he realizes that he has always been an outlaw who has lived on the borders of the law. He ultimately resolves, after being wounded by a shotgun blast, to accept himself as he is and live on the outskirts of society. Thus, he rides off on his horse towards the horizon, despite the desperate call of his symbolic son. So, Mangold, in one way or another, is telling us that the superhero genre is coming to an end, and that this film is the one that is putting the nail in the coffin. After a bunch of sagas and franchises with all sorts of superheroes, the genre finally has been inflated and reached the limit of its possibilities. In fact, that's the difference between Shane and Logan. The death of the protagonist in the first case is uncertain, while the end of the other is quite clear, also leaving behind his elder teammates. Following up on the twilight of the genre, it's curious how, where, Mangold decided Logan to die. After a fight with a double of himself, created by the company that is trying to kill him, he is pierced by a thick branch of a massive tree trunk in the middle of the forest. If we go back to Shane, we can see that one of the first things the cowboy does when he arrives at the Starrett farm is help Joe move a massive log. Apparently, it had been there before they settled in. As Joe was unable to move it on his own, the log became an obstacle for farming. With the help of Shane, they finally managed to move it, which sets the stage for their friendship and the cowboy's journey of self-discovery. There is a curious little fact that helps us to further understand this film, and consequently Logan as well. The translation of the title Shane in Spanish is Deep Roots, meaning that there is something underneath all of us that needs to be understood in order to continue. As we can see here in Shane. This is the same fragment that they watch in Logan, whose dialogues Laura recites at his father's funeral.
A man has to be what he is, Joey. Can't break them all.
As we saw in today's video, the quote of Shane in Logan is not coincidental, nor is it a forced addition by the director. We know that Mangold is a lover of the Western genre, but it is evident that in his film there is no banal intention to reference Shane for the sake of it. The fact that they share a similar type of character, a superhero on the brink of death who reflects upon his condition, not only indicates that this is a self-aware movie, but also elevates it within the superhero universe as something unique. What did you think about Logan? Please leave a comment below. See you next time on C Cinema.
If you like the video, please comment, like and subscribe.